Are we seriously witnessing this all over again? Because what unfolded tonight deserves a moment of reflection. Everyone watching needs to pause and truly absorb what just happened. A night that was expected to become one of the most iconic, unforgettable, and celebrated moments in women's professional basketball somehow turned into complete chaos. What should have been remembered for greatness was instead overshadowed, disrupted, and painfully ruined. The Indiana Fever walked away from the court after suffering a heartbreaking and completely preventable defeat against the Golden State Valkyries, falling by a final score of 90-88. But make no mistake, the scoreboard barely scratches the surface of the disaster that unfolded inside the Chase Center. What fans witnessed was far bigger than the final result. It was a night where extraordinary performances and historic moments were buried beneath questionable decisions, frustrating coaching mistakes, and officiating that appeared determined to dominate the narrative. Now, before anything else, the history that was made tonight deserves recognition because even in defeat, greatness cannot be ignored. Caitlin Clark delivered yet another historic performance at the Chase Center, accomplishing something that should be leading headlines across every major sports network. During the first half alone, Clark recorded the 500th assist of her WNBA career, but the achievement goes far beyond a simple number. The real story lies in the speed, context, and dominance behind it. With that milestone, Caitlin Clark officially became the fastest player in league history to reach both 1,000 career points and 500 career assists, accomplishing the feat in only 59 games. Take a moment to truly understand how extraordinary that number is. 59 games. Sue Bird, widely regarded as one of the most elite and fundamentally gifted point guards ever, reached the same mark in 82 games. Sabrina Ionescu, known for her all-around brilliance, needed 84 games. Hall of Famer Dawn Staley took 101 games to achieve it. Clark did it in just 59, an astonishing 23 games faster than one of the greatest point guards of an entire generation. This is not just another statistic. It is a historic accomplishment worthy of standing among the most remarkable records in women's professional basketball.
For the Fever, Caitlin Clark did make history tonight. We gonna talk about it, man, in an iconic fashion. She ended up making her 500 assists to Sophie Cunningham, but the referees is still in the show. Just ultimately still in the show.
The speed at which Caitlin Clark continues reaching historic milestones is becoming almost impossible to ignore. From a statistical standpoint, what she is accomplishing is unlike anything the WNBA has ever seen. She has officially become the first player in league history to record multiple games in a single season with more than 30 points and over 10 assists, a milestone that highlights not only her scoring ability but also her elite playmaking. What makes these achievements even more remarkable is the reality that every defensive coordinator in the league enters the game with one primary mission: stopping Caitlin Clark. Despite facing relentless defensive pressure and constant physical attention, Clark still managed to finish tonight's game with 16 points, 4 rebounds, and 6 assists while also contributing 3 major steals on the defensive end. But unfortunately, that is where the celebration ends because once the second half began, the frustration quickly took over. This is also the moment where serious questions need to be asked about the officiating, a topic many mainstream outlets appear unwilling to address honestly. Throughout the second half, Caitlin Clark was visibly frustrated, openly reacting in disbelief as repeated moments of heavy contact went ignored by officials. Multiple times, she attacked the basket aggressively, absorbed significant physical punishment from interior defenders, and somehow failed to receive foul calls. The frustration was impossible to hide. Clark could be seen arguing with referees, clearly demanding accountability and protection for players taking obvious contact. Eventually, that frustration boiled over and resulted in a highly controversial technical foul after a drive where she appeared to take clear contact on the arm without receiving the whistle. That technical foul ultimately carried major consequences, costing Indiana valuable free throw opportunities in a game decided by only 2 points, 90-88. In a contest this close, every possession mattered, and those lost points may have completely shifted momentum and possibly even the final outcome. Clark remained flawless at the free throw line, converting all 8 of her attempts, but the bigger issue remains impossible to overlook. Given the amount of contact she absorbed while attacking the paint, many believed she should have earned significantly more trips to the line. Inside a loud and emotionally charged San Francisco crowd, where the Valkyries were fighting desperately to defend home court, the officiating appeared inconsistent and far below the standard expected for a player of Clark's caliber. For many observers, it continued a troubling pattern that has followed her since opening night, one where physical play repeatedly goes unpunished. However, as frustrating as the officiating may have been, attention also needs to shift toward the Indiana Fever bench and the decisions coming from the coaching staff. Stephanie White's game management in critical moments left many fans questioning nearly every adjustment. The rotation patterns felt more confusing than strategic, and several decisions disrupted the offensive rhythm at the worst possible time in an already tightly contested battle.
24 fouls called on the fucking Fever tonight. Excuse my language, bro. 19 calls were now 20 on Golden State. I'm furious right now, bro, because that's how bad this game has been. Stephanie White, put Caitlin on the ball. Stephanie White, put Caitlin off the ball. Like, damn, Stephanie, make up your mind. Then Caitlin Clark set majority of the damn third quarter. This was just buffoonery.
One of the most frustrating parts of the night came from the constant inconsistency in how Caitlin Clark was being used offensively. At one moment, Stephanie White had Clark operating as the primary point guard, controlling the tempo, reading defensive coverages, and creating clean opportunities for teammates with her playmaking. Then, almost immediately, the strategy shifted completely. Instead of allowing Clark to remain involved as the engine of the offense, she was moved off the ball and left standing in the corner, reduced to the role of a spot-up shooter while the offense slowed into stagnant isolation possessions. For a player capable of controlling every aspect of the game, the sudden change in approach left many fans confused and frustrated. However, the decision that sparked the strongest reaction came during the critical stretch of the third quarter. In one of the most important moments of the game, Stephanie White made the surprising choice to keep Caitlin Clark on the bench for much of the period, a move that immediately raised serious questions. When you have arguably one of the league's most dangerous offensive weapons available, especially a player who had just added another historic achievement to her career, many expected her to remain at the center of the action rather than being treated like a secondary option within the rotation. That decision ultimately became one of the biggest talking points of the evening. As the game continued, the impact of those rotation choices became increasingly noticeable. Because of the stop-and-start rhythm and inconsistent offensive role, Clark never fully found her shooting flow. Instead of settling comfortably into the pace of the game, she appeared out of rhythm while facing a defense specifically built to pressure and contain her every move. By the final buzzer, Clark finished with an unusually difficult shooting night, going just 3 of 12 from the field and converting only 2 of 6 attempts from beyond the arc, numbers that felt far below the standard fans have become accustomed to seeing from one of the league's brightest stars.
I'm hella mad. Look at this. How the hell can we win when they look at this flop? You ain't even get hit. She ain't even get hit in the head, dog. She ain't even get hit in the head. Y'all see this? Bro, this has been all day. Bro.
But the criticism surrounding coaching decisions did not end with Caitlin Clark's role in the offense. In many ways, the frustration only deepened as the full picture became clearer. A quick look at the box score raises even more difficult questions about the choices made from the Indiana Fever sideline. Several players who many believed could have provided meaningful energy, athleticism, and defensive support never saw the floor. Grace Van Slooten, the athletic forward brought in specifically to strengthen the Fever's frontcourt depth, received a DNP by coach's decision and did not play a single minute. The same outcome followed for Tasha Harris and Damiris Dantas, both remaining on the bench for the entire game as coach's decisions. In a physically demanding road matchup decided by only 2 points, the Fever relied on just 9 active players while leaving 3 potentially valuable contributors completely unused. That reality becomes even more difficult to understand when considering the original purpose behind the Fever's roster moves. Much of the off-season effort focused on improving frontcourt athleticism, defensive flexibility, and overall depth, especially for physically demanding matchups like this one. Yet on a night where energy, rebounding, and defensive versatility were desperately needed, those added strengths remained unavailable because the coaching staff chose not to use them. It is the type of decision that repeatedly fuels post-game debates after narrow losses, with many fans once again asking the same difficult question about players who may have helped shift momentum but never received an opportunity to contribute. Meanwhile, while the Fever struggled to find consistency on the sidelines, the Golden State Valkyries continued to execute an extremely aggressive and physical defensive game plan. The defensive pressure remained relentless throughout the night, constantly testing Indiana's offensive rhythm. Veronica Burton, in particular, appeared fully committed to making life difficult for Caitlin Clark from start to finish. She played with non-stop intensity, applying heavy pressure, disrupting movement, and forcing Clark into uncomfortable situations all game long. At times, the physicality pushed the limits, leaving many observers questioning whether certain moments crossed the line without enough attention from officials.
Look at this. Look at this,
This
bro.
will be an official review for...
Hit her all in the face. Veronica Burton been on one all game with Caitlin Clark. All game. Veronica Burton made it her business to like disrupt Caitlin and be just an asshole all game to her, bro. I can't stunt she balled. Veronica Burton definitely balled.
Outside of Caitlin Clark, the Indiana Fever offense struggled to find any real rhythm, often looking disorganized and frustratingly inconsistent throughout key stretches of the game. Kelsey Mitchell logged more than 30 minutes on the floor, but her production never fully matched the opportunity. She finished with 14 points while shooting an inefficient 5 of 13 from the field, repeatedly attacking crowded lanes without success. On several possessions, Mitchell forced difficult drives into heavy interior traffic, often bypassing open teammates on the perimeter, only for the Valkyries' strong defensive presence around the basket to shut down the play. It became a recurring issue that prevented Indiana from building offensive momentum when it mattered most. The struggles were not limited to one player. Sophie Cunningham, who happened to receive Caitlin Clark's historic 500th career assist earlier in the night, also endured a difficult shooting performance. Despite playing close to 25 minutes and contributing 11 points, efficiency remained a major problem as she finished just 4 of 11 from the floor, including a tough 1 of 7 shooting performance from beyond the three-point line. Aaliyah Boston continued to battle hard in the paint, collecting 6 rebounds and adding 4 assists, but even her offensive production felt limited as she ended the night with 13 points on 4 of 11 shooting. Across the board, Indiana's starting unit looked noticeably out of sync, struggling to establish consistency and capitalize on opportunities during crucial moments of the game. Yet even during a night filled with frustration, missed opportunities, and disappointing offensive execution, one bright spot managed to stand above the chaos. Amid all the inconsistency, one player stepped onto the floor and refused to let the moment overwhelm her. That player was Raven Johnson. While much of the starting lineup struggled to find rhythm and confidence, Johnson delivered an impressive performance that quickly became one of the biggest positives of the night. In just 21 minutes and 20 seconds of action, she maximized every opportunity, bringing energy, composure, and impact when the team desperately needed stability.
Clocks, man, my goodness, man. Now I got to talk about Raven Johnson. Career game, man. 16 points, 7 to 10 from the field, just outstanding. She shot 90% from 3. Now it's a 2-point game. Come on, Kelsey Mitchell.
Raven Johnson quickly emerged as one of the biggest surprises and brightest performances of the night, delivering an incredibly efficient offensive showing when the Fever needed it most. She scored 16 points while shooting an impressive 7 of 10 from the field, an outstanding 70% shooting performance that stood out against the team's overall offensive struggles. From beyond the arc, Johnson remained just as effective, knocking down 2 of her 3 three-point attempts with confidence and composure. On a night where many of Indiana's top offensive options struggled to find rhythm, Raven Johnson unexpectedly became the team's most productive and efficient scoring threat. Not Caitlin Clark. Not Kelsey Mitchell. Not Aaliyah Boston. It was the rookie, a player many critics had doubted early on and someone who had often been viewed as a secondary piece within the rotation. Yet despite limited expectations, Johnson stepped off the bench and finished with a team-best +4 rating, becoming one of the main reasons Indiana remained competitive deep into the game. What makes her performance even more difficult to ignore is the timing of when she was finally allowed to make an impact. Despite scoring efficiently and providing desperately needed energy, Johnson spent much of the opening portion of the game watching from the bench while Indiana struggled to establish consistency. In hindsight, many will likely question whether her presence earlier could have shifted momentum or stabilized the team offensively during critical stretches. Her production ultimately became one of the strongest arguments in favor of deeper rotation adjustments moving forward. Still, even with Raven Johnson's breakout performance helping keep Indiana alive, the outcome ultimately came down to one final heartbreaking sequence in the closing moments. The Fever trailed by only 2 points, 90-88, as tension inside the Chase Center reached an unbearable level. With one final possession remaining, Indiana had a chance to either tie the game or potentially steal a dramatic victory. These are the moments where coaching decisions often define outcomes, where preparation, spacing, and execution separate winning teams from disappointing endings. But as the final seconds ticked away, the possession quickly turned chaotic. Floor spacing collapsed, players appeared rushed, and the offense never fully settled into structure. Aaliyah Boston, attempting to rescue the possession, attacked the basket aggressively and appeared to absorb heavy contact near the rim, yet no whistle came from the officials. After a game filled with frequent foul calls, many were left frustrated seeing silence during one of the most important possessions of the night. However, despite the controversy surrounding officiating, much of the frustration afterward shifted toward the Fever sideline. As the final possession unraveled and players appeared increasingly rushed and uncertain, many expected a timeout to stop the chaos and reset the moment. Stephanie White still had one available, giving her the opportunity to settle her team, organize the offense, and design a cleaner final look. Instead, the possession continued without interruption as confusion took over, leaving many observers questioning whether a timeout in that critical moment could have completely changed the ending of an already painful loss.
Oh my God, bro. Correlation said, I just don't understand how Steph watched that possession and didn't call a timeout earlier. I'm so annoyed. I absolutely despise the last possession. I'm just shaking my head. Stephanie White completely. Let's see. Let's see this last possession, guys.
With only half a second remaining on the game clock, Indiana found itself forced into a desperate final attempt. The possession ended in chaos, leaving behind an extremely difficult, off-balance catch-and-shoot opportunity with virtually no chance to reset or create a cleaner look. Then came the buzzer. Game over. And with that, what should have been remembered as a purely celebratory night instead ended with frustration, disappointment, and lingering questions. The unavoidable truth is this: Caitlin Clark made undeniable WNBA history tonight. She officially became the fastest player ever to reach 1,000 career points and 500 assists, surpassing some of the greatest names the sport has ever seen. That achievement is permanent, historic, and fully deserving of recognition and celebration across the basketball world. At the same time, however, the game itself told a far more complicated story. Clark finished the night shooting just 3 of 12 from the field, far below the standard typically expected from a player of her caliber. Frustration with officiating boiled over at multiple points, eventually leading to a technical foul after repeated moments of heavy contact appeared to go uncalled. Ball security also became an issue, as she finished with 5 turnovers in an emotionally charged and physically demanding matchup. Meanwhile, coaching decisions remained under heavy scrutiny, particularly the choice to leave players such as Grace Van Slooten, Tasha Harris, and Damiris Dantas on the bench for the entire contest despite the game remaining close from start to finish. In many ways, the night perfectly reflected the current reality surrounding the Indiana Fever, a team capable of producing unforgettable moments of history while simultaneously finding painful ways to let victories slip away. Still, if there was one overwhelmingly positive takeaway from an otherwise frustrating evening, it may have been the emergence of Raven Johnson as a reliable and highly efficient offensive contributor. Her impact off the bench provided energy, composure, and much-needed production at critical moments, immediately raising questions about whether a larger role could be waiting for her moving forward. As the Fever head into an extremely important stretch of the season, every game now carries added pressure for momentum, confidence, and playoff positioning. The next matchup could reveal a great deal about how this team responds to adversity and whether meaningful adjustments are finally made. And now the conversation shifts to the fans because this game leaves behind several difficult questions. Does Caitlin Clark's historic record become overshadowed by a heartbreaking loss? Should the milestone itself remain the main headline despite the result? Were there officiating decisions that deserve greater scrutiny? And perhaps most importantly, are tougher conversations beginning to emerge about the coaching direction of this team? One thing feels certain: the Indiana Fever cannot continue letting close games slip away if they hope to turn potential into real success as the season moves forward.